guys, hope everyone's doing good. Just out here checking the car out from the turbo failure. Doesn't look like anything went through the exhaust wheel or anything. Everything looks good that way. You can see where the exhaust wheel was just scrubbing as well. I'm definitely not seeing any indication that anything big went through the turbo. I'm hoping the bearings maybe just got a little bit of wear and eventually touched down. So I got the plugs out. No damage to any of the plugs. Nothing out of the ordinary there. So I'm all set up to do a compression check right now. I already know that this engine usually makes right around 160. Got a pretty good record of what everything is. But I got the compression gauge in there. Got a start button on it. And you can usually know by the first cycle of the piston. It usually will pump it up a good chunk of what your total compression is. Usually if you know it only goes to like 40, 50, 60 on the first pump, you definitely have a problem. Been there tons of times. I usually give it about 3 or 4 pumps and see what it ends up at. So I got the compression check done. They were all right about 160 where they usually are. No issues there. I went through the leak down test. All the cylinders are sealed up super tight. Definitely no issues there. They all have basically 0 leak down. So next thing I do is drop the oil, check the filter. All right, got the filter dropped. And it definitely does not look good. That is for sure. Hopefully it's just really fine stuff. But it definitely has some material in here. Cut this open and see, but it's probably just really fine stuff at this point. So I got the filter cut open. I didn't bother even cutting a section out of this and squeezing it out because there is quite a bit of stuff in here. So I don't know that the turbo would necessarily fail that fast to make that much debris. Seems kind of weird to me. I'm gonna probably pull the oil pan down and take a look in there. I'm just gonna check the crank thrust right now. I know what I had it set before at. I have to look at my notes, but it's either 7 or 8 thou. So I got the indicator on there. I'm just trying to do this with one hand, so it's pretty much right there. And if I shove it back the other way, it's about 9 thou. So I got the pan down. It really looks pretty good in the pan. Usually if you got some kind of failure, you'll have all kinds of metal dust and debris and stuff in there. So looks really good. So hopefully no issues. All right, so I just went through. I checked all the rod bearings. I pulled the rear main cap, checked the thrust bearing. Everything looks fine. It does have a small amount of wear on it, probably why it's opened up a little bit, but definitely no big deal. It's right about 9 thou. I double checked it all and then I rechecked it once I put it all back together. All the rod bearings look perfect. That rear main looks perfect. I took the oil pump apart. It looks like brand new. I definitely don't see any issues down here. I went ahead and rotated it, checked the cam as best I could from underneath, and everything looks good there. Definitely not seeing any engine related issues. So I think I'm going to throw the pan back on this, and I'm just going to go up and check the valve lash. I got the covers off now. The only other thing I want to do is I just want to check the turbo feed line and the drain line. Just make sure nothing's blocked or I don't know, anything like that. But I think we're looking pretty good. Okay, I just threw the starter back up. The oil pan is a real pain to put back up, so I'm going to leave that for probably tomorrow. I do want to just check this out quick, make sure there's no issues here. So I'll show you guys how I do the valve set. This is probably the easiest way to run through the valve set, in my opinion. This goes for most engines. You can do it this way. And the way I remember it is EOIC, so exhaust open, you can do the intake, and intake closing, you can do the exhaust. So I got a starter button on it. So we got an exhaust valve there. So intake's opening. And intake is closing. So I should be able to do this guy right now. And yeah, it's loose. So get the feeler gauge in there. So that guy's good. And then if you bump that same cylinder over till the exhaust starts open, then you can do the intake. And that guy's good as well. That, in my opinion, is the easiest way to rip through a valve set, or just setting the valves. You can do it this way as well. So you can literally whip through these things pretty quick like this. So exhaust is opening. You can do this intake. That intake's closing, so I can do the exhaust. That exhaust is opening. I can do this intake. That intake is closing. I can do this exhaust. That exhaust is opening. I can do this intake. That intake's closing. I can do the exhaust. That exhaust is opening. I can do the intake. That intake is closing. I can do the exhaust. So I am running stud mounted rockers with a stud girdle. They are Crowler rockers with the AFR stud girdle. And this setup works really well for me. I've had zero issues with it. I just check everything not super often, probably 2-3 times a season, and it works really well for me. Sure, it'd be nice to have a nice shaft rocker setup, but I don't know if you've ever priced that up before. This is a lot cheaper, and like I said, gets the job done. So at this point, I'm really not seeing any issues with the engine. As far as I'm concerned, it is good to go. I'm just cleaning the oil pan out right now. And on the rag that I just kind of wiped out the corner of the oil pan, I don't know if you can see this stuff or not, but there's definitely a lot of, like those pieces are like brass. These bigger silver colored pieces are either aluminum or some kind of bearing material. They're not ferrous metal. Magnet does not pick them up. And I do have stuff. Last time I got the turbo rebuilt, I had them send me back my old parts so I could kind of see what was in it. And I was kind of chasing metal in the engine after an engine failure. So I wanted to make sure that this was where the metal was kind of stuck. And I think if you look in there, yeah, you can see little chunks of metal still stuck in that thrust plate. But the brass definitely looks like this color. So I'm definitely assuming this is where all the brass stuff's coming from. And the aluminum material, I'm assuming, has just come from the turbo. I mean, it definitely went through all the cylinders. So whether it just kind of made its way down to the pan somehow, kind of a long shot, I think. But I'm really not seeing anything at this point leading me to believe that there's any other problems with the engine. So I have sent my turbo out. It actually made it there on Friday, so it'll probably be a week or two before I get it back. But I did ask to get my old parts back so I can see them. So before I do run it anymore, I can really look at the old stuff. So at this point, guys, that's all I got. Basically, I've been through everything. I don't see any issues with the engine. Everything checks out. Next to tearing it right down and maybe checking the cam bearings and stuff. That's the only other place I can think of this material would come from. And the oil pressure was all normal before I tore it down, so I really don't think I have an issue there. And you can kind of look up and you can kind of see where the cam bearings are. I don't see anything kind of hanging out of there or anything like that. And I think you'd see a lot more debris in the pan. So at this point, the engine's going all back together. I'm waiting for the turbo to get back. I did have some options. There were some used ones out there. I could have bought a new one, but at this point, I'm just going to get the old one fixed. Might take me a little longer to get back out racing, but that way I know what I got. And it really shouldn't affect anything tune-wise that I got going on. So I'll keep you guys posted. My next thing is I'm going to get going on this truck. I really kind of stalled out on it, dealing with the car. So hopefully with this week downtime I can hopefully get this thing into some primer. So stay tuned, guys. Really appreciate you guys watching. If you got a comment, throw it up there. If you haven't hit the subscribe button, do me a favor, hit the button, and have a good day, guys. Thanks for watching.